So in this video we're going to talk about making your accurate planning drawings, and more specifically we're going to talk about your labeled or numbered, should I say, your numbered exploded view. And I've got this Sketchup drawing here, which is kind of a slightly different version of one of the exercises that you did for you when you were learning Sketchup. And this obviously is a little coffee table, and it's got this top on it, and it's got this area inside for storage. And so I want to use this as my demonstration for, first of all, making the actual exploded view itself. Now, the purpose of the exploded view is so that people can see what all the different parts are, and also, of course, how they fit together. And then they should also be clearly visible, all of the parts, so that you can also then give each part a number. Okay, so let's do that. So all you really need for this is the move tool, and you just need to select your parts and just move them in a logical way away from each other. You can see that I'm on the green axis here, and I'm going to do that same thing with the front part of the frame, which of course is identical. And already you're starting to see, because I'm moving it vertically or horizontally, you can start to see how all the parts fit together. If you were just to kind of move them a bit random, or a bit randomly, should I say, then it would be much harder for somebody looking at your drawing to see that. Now, the other thing I need to do here is I've got this this lid that goes on top of the table, and it sits in between these two cross members. And it's also got these two parts here, which are themselves separate parts. And those also ensure that it fits in the right place when you put it down, of course. So I also need to make sure that I move, first of all three of those parts up a little bit, so that when I copy and paste this, it's going to be visible, all the parts are going to be visible. And then what I can do is I can deselect this one. I'm holding down Shift to deselect it, and then I take my move tool. And because I only deselected this one, you can just about see behind it, these two parts are still selected. And I've just moved those down vertically slightly so that you can see those as well. Now, the one last thing I need to do is, for an exploded view, every part needs to be separate from all other parts. So I'm just going to select those two and move them very slightly over here. Not so that it becomes a mystery where they fit, but just enough so that we can see that the base of it is also visible and clearly just a plain rectangle. Now, other things that you'll note here, whoops, we don't do that. Other things that you'll note here, it's really clear that each of these corners has a little corner cut out of it from the view that I've chosen, and I guess that rear one here, you can even see it if you get the right angle. Now, I'm actually pretty happy with that angle for my exploded view. And what I need to do now, and anytime you're taking a screenshot from your screen, you need to get in as close as possible. So I'm going to zoom in as close as I can without any part of my drawing being missing. Okay, I think that's probably about as close as I can get. And then I'm just going to screenshot that so that I can bring it in to my into my Google Doc. All right, so actually I made a mistake there because I left those two parts selected, so these two over here. So I'm just going to deselect and then take that screenshot again. Make sure I get everything in, and there I have it. Right, so now what I can do is I can go to my Google Doc that I'm going to put this into, and instead of, a lot of people make the mistake of inserting an image. Okay, what you actually need to do in this case is you need to insert a drawing, okay, a new drawing, and then when you do that, this pops up, and you've got quite a few edit features right up at the top here, and the first thing I'm going to do is get an image. And the image, of course, is the screenshot that I just took. So let me just go and go to my desktop and find that screenshot. That's the one. And now it's going to upload into my document. Okay, and there's my drawing. Now, you may already know that in pretty much in every Google editing suite, you can just double click on an image and it gives you the chance then to crop the image. And I don't need any more of my image around the outside of my drawing or of my product than there needs to be. So I can just crop it pretty close to the edges. That's already fairly close. I can bring it a little bit closer. And you can see now I've saved myself all this space around the outside, which then really focuses the viewer's eye on the drawing. Now, I always find as well that it actually looks a lot better if I put a line around the outside. So I'm just going to put a very thin, dark line around the outside of there and just move it so that it's at the center. Now what I'm going to do is zoom out just a little bit as well. That's probably too far, so let's zoom back in again. Oops, that was the wrong zoom. Zoom in. Right, okay, so now what I need to do is I need to label this, and I've got a couple of parts. So I'm going to, my front and back part, they're kind of my prominent parts. I'm going to make those part one. So I can do this just by doing the labeling once. So I'm going to spend some time to get the labeling looking really nice, and then I'm going to use it over and over again. So part one, I'm going to maybe reduce my text size just slightly, and I think I actually prefer a slightly different font. So I'm going to choose Railway. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Actually, I'm going to make my font just a bit smaller too. So make that 12 instead of 14. And I'm going to also put my text central in that box. Right. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to put a line again around the outside of that. And this time I'm going to make it just a little thicker, because those are things that you really need to pay attention to. And the final thing is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some color in here. So make that orange. And now it's really visible what part one is. Okay, now it will be visible, should I say, once I put in a line. Now I can choose various different kinds of line. I'm going to choose an arrow. And when I draw my arrow, I can lock it onto one of these corners, and currently I've got a point on the end, but actually what I want is to have a dot like that, and then of course, oops, delete that, I can then move this block and the line, because I locked it onto this little corner here, it will move with me. So obviously I'm going to need to, oh, it didn't move with me that time. Okay, I've snapped it back onto there, and now I've got part one. Now what I need to do is label the other part so that people know it's identical. So I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm holding down Shift so I can select the line and the text block. And now on a Mac, when I hold down my Option key and I drag that, I can drag a copy of it over here, move the line, and now I've got part one, or the two different incidences of part one labeled. Now I've got another couple of parts, of course, that I need to label, and then I'm going to go through that. I can do that pretty quickly then with a real consistency in my work, and it'll look really good. So I'm going to hold down the I just selected both of those by clicking on them, holding down Shift, and now what I'm going to do, holding down Option on my keyboard, I'm going to move down here, and I'm going to call this bottom part here, I'm going to call that part 2. So I'm going to move the end of my arrow to that lock point and then just pull that onto there. And of course I do need to change my text, so that now says part 2. Now you can see with these parts, with my cross members, those two are identical, but they're also going to take up a lot of space if I give them separate numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make those part 3, and I'm going to just move that directly upwards by selecting both the arrow and the box, and then holding down Option as I move it, and I'm going to call that part 3. Now what I can do is I can take my line for that one, and I can then duplicate that line by only selecting the line and again moving it, holding down the Option key. And that one probably needs to be moved very slightly up. And you can see then I've got part 3 labeled. And really easily, again, I can hold down, select all of those 3 together, hold down my Option key, drag over here. Let's get it somewhere where it can be edited. And move the box so it's in a more logical place. And you can see they're stuck to the box because of where I put them, so I can just move them so that they're locked onto a different part of the box. And then you can see very quickly we're starting to build up this real nice, neat, clear, exploded view where all your parts are labeled. Okay. Now, there's quite a bit more labeling to do, of course, but I'm not going to go and do that through the whole thing because I think by now you get the idea. Make your box once, make your line once, get the format of that correct, and then by holding down your Control key on your keyboard, that's if you're using a Mac. I think it's your Option key on your on a PC. You'll have to check it out. But by selecting and then dragging while holding down that key, you can make a copy of your boxes. And this is how you make a real nice, neat, exploded view. And when you save and close, that's what you'll get in your document, and it looks really good. Okay, that's the video for today. Please follow these instructions, and if you need to, watch this again. And if you watch it again and there's still something you don't get, please ask me a question. Okay, talk to you later.